Alright. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode 128. We are here reviewing the final story for season 8 of Doctor Who, which also happened to be the final story of John Pertwee's run for the Doctor. Well, so in the second season he had for Doctor. Called The Dæmons. It is a five-parter, and it's the last ever. A little fun fact with this one. This was the last five-parter in the entire series. Because mostly put a lot of the ones out there were 4 or 6 parts. Yeah, apparently this was planned to be 6 parts, and it was shortened to 5 due to production issues. The other 2 being the Dominators and the Mind Robber. Air period of May 22nd to June 19th of 1971. By the way, the very next show that came after this one was Day of the Dalek, which I do on that one. Yep. This one, I have a tiny bit of memory of this one. Most about the ending. So, basically, we had this big dig that's going on, and of course, there's also this older lady who's there. Named Olive Hawthorne. She's basically depicted as sort of like an older lady. She at the time was only like, let's see, this was 71, so she was in her 40s. By the way, they also feature this technician who works for Brigadier. This is his only TV appearance. Mostly, but he appears in comics after this. But Mrs. Hawthorne, she of course would appear mostly put in, I kid you not. So she also appeared in real-time pictures. Yes. Which, if you're curious, did they bring back the actress to play her? Yes, they did. They certainly did. They brought her back for this particular role. Yep, aired back in 2017. These series of specials. She passed away just a few years ago. One thing I really enjoy with this story is that not only the Doctor and Jo get something to do, but also the Brigadier, Benton, and Yates. They all get something to do this episode. So basically, the Professor is trying to open this thing up. He later gets killed off by the end of the first parts. Yeah, it's like they build up to this basically thing. The guy himself, Horner, he would appear in like a novel after this, but let's put in a flashback. Basically, a lot of it is like, yeah, it's like Mrs. Hawthorne, one of this is the vicars. Basically, it's like a priest. Like, oh no, not that guy. And it's like, oh, here's the magistrate per se. And it's a master. And another quirky disguise of his. Excuse me. And this whole thing is about demons, and then like there's an explosion happen when this tomb opens up. Which, by the way, the tomb itself plays no role itself after part 1. It is like the master's doing a ceremony, and Joe and Doctor are there. Doctor's out for a lot of episode 2. He comes back in episode 3. Then Joe gets knocked out. Then she's taking out the story part way. I think the reason why I took out the Doctor is they give Benton and Yates something to do. Like at one point you have Benton just walk around the village, and he hears a voice. Happy Mrs. Hawthorne. Miss Hawthorne frees him being tied up. First, Benton as a young man. This way, the actress herself was like in her. I think she was in her 40s at this point, like 42, 43-ish. And Benton himself is treating him, he's basically being a complete gentleman to her. And we see him actually get into a physical fist fight with a henchman of the master, which I thought was really cool. One of 2 fights he has the whole story. I think, like, because a lot of the time when they tend to have him fight, like get into like a fist fight, he usually gets knocked out very quickly. But Benton himself gets a lot to do here. And plus, he's not wearing his uniform. He basically just put on a civilian outfit. And same thing with Yates. Yates has basically been on Joe Grant half the time. But and also put a barrier on the town. So that basically the Doctor has to get the Brigadier. Brigadier is... But you're probably thinking, how did Benton and Yates get there? They borrowed the Brigadier's helicopter, which is the same one from... Which apparently, from what I heard, the shot of basically the helicopter flying is actually from the movie, from James' movie Russian Love. They reused an unused shot. And also, same helicopter that was used in the classic Doctor Who story and in the world. One of my first favorites. And they get there, and then basically it's the Doctor, Joe, Benton, Yates, Mrs. Hawthorne is there too, and all trapped into this barrier across this town. And of course, let's say demons, there's aliens. But I do like the whole supernatural element here. I thought it was really cool. Also, here's a fun fact about this story. This is the only third Doctor story for the entirety of the second season to not feature the TARDIS. You think, interesting. No mention of TARDIS. This is probably by far, probably the first story ever for Doctor Who to have no mention of the TARDIS, no appearance by the console, nothing. It just Doctor's is just here, and basically he just, well, then they have him go to the edge of the barrier, and like the thing melts. So they make this device. They get through. The device gets destroyed. Maxim is this giant person who basically documents to later on convinces to leave the planet. And Master basically is this weird outfit, and then becomes sort of an occult thing. I wonder if the story itself would later. I wonder if basically they got ideas from this from British horror movies for this story. I looked up. There's no mention of the fact that they probably take inspiration from British horror. I would not be surprised they did. Because I feel like a lot of the elements of this story feels like a lot of something that you see Hammer Horror do. Yeah. It's like Hammer Horror do. And the one thing I do remember of the story is actually the ending. The only thing I remember. They also have this thing up in episode 1 that used again in episode 5 and 6, where the Doctor can have Bessie move on her own. which turns out to be a remote control. Yes, seriously, a remote control, which they use episode 5, and this basically Scott's master's downfall in the story itself. But then, of course, when they have Yates contact Brigham the first time, it's like, okay, so much as he was, we do know who's behind this. The Master. And Brigitter's like, that dick. He doesn't have the expression. He doesn't say that, but he just closes things up. Like, okay. And he breaks through, and then of course they have him fight the demons, which is something the unit hardly ever does. Shoot stuff, because you probably think, like, at this point, what did they really have shot at the whole time in these 2 seasons? Well, they shot at the Autons. Where they shot at the little demon thing that hear the story. You probably think, was there anything else they shot at? Was it the Silurians? No, surprisingly, they did not. What, the Bastard Death? No. Definitely not Inferno. Inferno was like alternate Earth. You're like, okay. The Claws of Axos. Yes, they kind of did. They most certainly did. It kind of felt as though this story here felt basically, it's a similar excitement that we had for Claws of Axos, which I thought was really cool. And the one I do remember is basically the Master being captured by the Doctor and have a gun pointed at him by, of all people, Benton. Yes, frickin' Benton. And eventually the Doctor gets Bessie back, and then he's surrounded by, and of course he's arrested, and you won't see him again until Sea Devils, when he breaks out of prison. But this was really good. I enjoy Dæmons. And a little fun. Here's something interesting about the story. Did you know this was John Pertwee's favorite story? And Nicholas Courtney, the guy who played the Brigadier, this was his second favorite story behind Inferno. I'm like, wow. I like the last season, which had really a very low, slow-paced story. This one did. It was Mind of Evil, but it wasn't as dreadful as Ambassadors of Death. My rating for the Dæmons is a 9 out of 10. It's overall a really good story. So, now for my rankings for Season 8 for Doctor Who. Only 5 stories. And here's something interesting. Here is the only story I actually own from Season 8. Terror of the Autons. This one is noteworthy for the return, the second appearance, and the final appearance of second overall appearance for the Autons, and the last time they appeared in Classic Who until Rose. And this is also the debut of Joe Grant and Mike Yates, along with the Master. So then we had Mind of Evil, which that was a little too much going with that one. I like Claws of Axos. I really enjoyed Colony in Space, and I enjoyed Dæmons. I gotta say, Season 8 was a well-balanced season. Yeah, Mind of Evil was okay. But of the 5 stories, how would I rank them? So, my ranking for this basically season is something. So, number 5, I give Mind of Evil. Pretty good idea. But what about 1 through 4? Let's see. I would probably say I give number 4 to... I think I'll give it the Colony in Space. Yeah, it is definitely Colony in Space is definitely better. But what do I give number 3? Number 3, I give that to Terror of the Autons. Yes, the opening story, number 3. Number 2, I give that to the Claws of Axos. And number 1, the story for this one, Dæmons. Yep, because of course this ended in a really good way. And that's my rankings for this one. Season 7, per se, my rankings now were different. I don't think I remember did do a ranking one for that one. So here's basically how I only own 2 stories now. One I own the opening story and the second one. Now I had to probably get, but I don't want to go right now. But so I would rank basically that season. So excuse me, that story had Spirit for Space, the Silurians, Ambassadors of Death, and Inferno. Only 4 stories for the first season of season 7 of Doctor Who. Number 4, it's obvious. Number 4 is Ambassador of Death. Number 3, I give that to. Surprisingly, I give that to. The Silurians. Yeah, I give it number 3 to the Silurians. Number 2, I give that to Inferno. Yep, I give Inferno. Despite Inferno being a really good story, and it's a very popular John Pertwee story, nothing beats the historical significance of my number 1, Spirit from Space. Why is that one noteworthy? Why did I make number 1? Because it's a big historical serial. It's very historical note for classic Doctor Who. It's the first of Roots of Color. It's the first of the long-running story stuff. It basically, everything began with Spirit in Space when it comes to John Pertwee. Plus, also, it's the first time that we have an X-ray done for a Doctor. Plus, it was mentioned, oh yeah, he has 2 hearts. Yeah. Miss Hawthorne herself, she doesn't play a lot of big role in the story. She's just there just to persuade stuff. And it's surprising, though, for a woman who basically was just there being antagonist to the Professor and to being allied to the Doctor the whole story. She isn't really fighting, but she basically is like, she does basically have some things she is against some stuff that he says, like the whole thing that she believes is nothing more than alien stuff. She's not happy with that, but she does enjoy the help. I do appreciate the fact we have an original character who's not like an antagonist. But in the case of classic Doctor Who, this will be her only appearance. It is something this woman would never return. Even for New Who, this woman would never return for New Who. That's why I think she did survive the story. Now, I think maybe the reason we couldn't bring it back, I don't think was due to her age. No, I highly doubt that was the reason why. I think, and this is my personal thing, the reason why they bring her back prior to her passing in 2021. I think because the showrunners of New Who had no interest in this character at all. Or the actress. Not in the slightest. But at least they get something nice for her with a web series. But I think she's like one of 2 to get spin-offs. The other being the 2 characters debuted in The Talons Wing Cheyenne. But aside from the fact this is the end, now, you're probably thinking, is there any really big historical note with this particular story? Yes. Episode 2 was the 300th episode of Doctor Who. Yep. Of classic Doctor Who. Episode 2 was 300th episode. You're probably thinking, was there anything else per se? Well, it is the end of the Master storyline. The one that dominated Season 8. True. Aside from that, nothing very much else per se. Nothing else. But yeah, that is pretty much a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Next up, Project Red. That's how my voice basically gets a little better before that. Okay? Next video. Bye.